Welcome, everybody, to Out Comes the Sun Radio and podcast. I am here with my co-host, my delightful and best friend, Melissa Yamaguchi, and I'm Mariel Hemingway. And here we are. We are coming to you from Dash and YouTube and Spotify and Apple and
your local gas station.
Yes, exactly. I would love to be coming out of the gas.
When they're pumping gas. And it's you and me with our faces pressed as close to the cameras we can get going. Get electric. Yeah.
But I think we would be inspiring, or we would just make people laugh.
Yeah. Or people would just get 10 cents worth of gas and get the hell out of there. I'm not going to Shell anymore.
Oh my God. So Melissa, what's going on? What's going on in the world?
Well, let's talk about what's going on in your family's neck of the woods in Queens Village, New York. There's a senior center, which has started something that I know you and I are going to want to talk about. They're doing stealth mental health with the elderly. Because what they found out is that healthcare for the elderly is a little bit tricky. You're talking about people from their late 70s to their mid 90s and beyond. And they don't want to be told that they've got mental health issues. No. They come from the generation when it was a stigma still. So they realized that the loneliness and anxiety rose through COVID, as we know, but it really did for the elderly. And not only did that rise, the anxiety and loneliness, but so did substance abuse. So what they discovered was they had to get the people together and start to talk to them. Now, it just so happens in this area of Queens Village, it's predominantly Puerto Rican, Hispanic speaking. So they had to bring in people who could speak to the people and understand their culture and understand how to address this with them. But they said that they began everything by talking about self-reflection. Because Medicare doesn't cover a lot of what's taking place, although this is going to be changing in 2024. Medicare will be covering a lot more mental health. But at this point right now, they've discovered the way to get the elderly to open up about what's happening in their lives, to say, let's take a little self-reflection. Let's talk about your physical health. A lot of them were coming forward saying, can we talk about depression? And then a couple of the articles that I read said that a lot of older men and women were coming forward saying, can I talk to you about my children? Whether it's a bossy adult child or it's a neglecting adult child or whatever's taking place, they feel they've been neglected or abused by an adult child and they have no one to turn to because their peers and their friends maybe have already passed. And so they feel very alone. And so they've started this mental health approach in a stealth way by just saying, let's talk about self-reflection. What's going on in your world? Because they can't address it as mental health.
No, of course not. It actually makes sense when you take away the words. Sometimes it just opens people up to having a conversation. That's why I always am saying it's about everything you do, because the minute you say mental health, mental wellness, mental illness, mental anything, the minute you say mental, it's like all of a sudden it's like, wait, something's wrong.
Yeah.
And in order to have a dialogue, people have to feel free to be open. Yes. And that's the key. So I think that's wonderful, because I think it is a generation that is not, they're not going to change how they think about this subject because they were brought up to not talk about it. That would be like my parents, if they were still alive, talking about it. It wouldn't happen if it was direct, right?
Fewer than half get help. And not only are fewer than half getting help, but there's such low numbers of professionals to help them, that what's starting to happen in these senior centers, even though they may not have a licensed therapist on board, they're starting to teach the people that work there some verbiage and some words that we can use to get them to open up. Because, it's embarrassing for someone to say, my son abuses me, my daughter neglects me. That's embarrassing. There's a lot of shame. And so they don't.
And it makes a person think, that they did a bad job. Right. Look, I have this child and they neglect me. I must have screwed up because I have a child that neglects me, and so there's all that weight around things that happen with our family members because we think we're somehow responsible, especially if you're the senior, and the sad thing is that really we should be looking to those people as our wisdom keepers, as the people
Yes.
that have all the knowledge, that
Yep.
we don't neglect them. We hold court with them,
Yes.
and we listen to their stories. And that's, I don't know if we talked about that, but Bobby had mentioned to me not long ago that one of the keys of the blue zones and people that are living the longest, longevity, one of the keys is grandparents.
Sure,
So
it is.
connection is huge.
You got a longer probability of your children growing to old age, as well as the grandparents growing to old age when they make that connection. Absolutely.
Absolutely. I mean, there's this meme going around Instagram. It's like, your mother will live longer if you spend time with her or something. I keep sending it to my daughters. hang out with your mom.
They're like, stay away from her.
I'm like, well, listen, you're gonna get the meme soon. If I don't get a reaction, damn it.
My in addition to paying attention to our elderly, you're right, and spending time with them. One of the other things that they discovered at the senior center that the elderly responded so favorably to when working on their mental health or their self-regulate, their reflection was music.
Yeah, I was just going to say
music. And these old people were, doing the salsa and like moving their hips in ways that they didn't know their hips could move, and reciting the words verbatim. It's so interesting. Well, remember when John Sane was talking about that story of maybe it was John Sane, I don't know, we've had so many amazing guests, but talking about I think it was a group of 70-year-olds that were put into an environment where they said, okay, this is 30 years sooner. And they gave them the music of the time. No, you and Bobby and I were talking about that.
Yes,
that's a history that Bobby and I read about in Harvard. Yeah.
And they started, well, okay,
John.
so it was Bobby, it was whatever.
It's Bobby Sane and Melissa John. Yeah.
Yes, but people do, you change somebody's environment and it can change the way they think. And then when you change the way you think, then physically you respond to that. I'm fascinated by how we can, it really is about choice and about orchestrating right environment for senior citizens, for kids, for whatever it is. But that's so important.
This is proper, good, and ethical manipulation.
Yes, absolutely. And it's using, maybe if AI becomes anything part of it, it's these kinds of things that, like, can we focus these, artificial intelligence things to do good in the world? Maybe there's a way to do that. I don't know.
Maybe if you're in the senior center and someone says, I'm sad, and he goes, all of a sudden they're like,
I just snorted.
That's okay.
Everybody heard it.
Sorry. I'm going to have music for a snort before long. I'll come up with something.
My gosh. Well, that's amazing. Hey, everyone, we have an amazing guest, a very amazing guest who I think we'll have to speak to again, because he's doing great things in the world, and I can't wait. I'm going to tell you, he just hangs out with whales and dolphins pretty much every day. What? Hello. I gotta go do this. And by the way,
that's a podcast.
That's a podcast. Oh, yes, it is. But I don't know. Can we hold our balance on a?
No, he's hanging out in a podcast, a pod of whales. He's in a podcast.
Gosh, I got to be quicker. Look at you. Listen to you. Whatever. Stay tuned, everyone. You're listening to Out Comes the Sun Radio with Melissa Yamaguchi and Mariel Hemingway. And oh, yes, we have a great guest. So stay where you are. As a mental health advocate and author, I love books. Books have the capacity to inspire, educate, transform, and ultimately help readers all over the world. So if you want to publish your book, or if you need help writing your story, I highly recommend Mindstir Media, rated the #1 best book publisher around the country. Mindster Media can help you no matter where you are in the book writing or publishing process. Go to mindstermedia.com to learn more and schedule a consultation. Hello, everybody. We have such an amazing guest. I'm super excited. Rich Gurman. He's a business coach, a speaker, an author, a stand-up paddleboarder, and an ocean conservationist. Rich has been an entrepreneur and environmental advocate with an unyielding passion for the ocean. Since 1999, he has been respected business coach, captivating speaker, and best-selling author of 3 transformative books. In 2010, Rich's fascination with stand-up paddleboarding ignited a journey that would shape his legacy. Having navigated an astonishing 30,000 miles, more than the circumference of the earth, he has documented over 2,000 awe-inspiring interactions with dolphins and whales, which is just blows my mind. It's so cool. The New York Times, NPR, the BBC, and more. His latest book, Blue Laguna, is a visual testament to the captivating marine life he has intimately encountered from his paddleboard. This is so cool. Rich's passions led him to found Project O, a nonprofit organization committed to the preservation and protection of our ocean and the fragile life within it. Through his innovative Blue City Network, his organization is at the forefront of guiding cities toward regenerative practices, harmonizing the progress of urban development and the needs of the environment. Rich's voice reaches further through his solution-focused podcast, Our Epic Ocean, where he engages with esteemed experts to address the world's most pressing challenges. Now, for the past 2 years, Rich has also served as president of the nonprofit One Whale foundation that is working to establish an ocean reserve that will provide sanctuary for whales held in captivity. Gosh, you just do so much. I'm getting exhausted, but I'm excited as well because it's so inspiring. Based on his breathtaking city of Laguna Beach, where he lives in California, Rich exemplifies the remarkable potential of aligning passion and purpose. His journey stands as a testament to the transformative impact that one individual can make through love for the planet, and more importantly, to the massive change possible utilizing the power of collaboration, which is why we're with you today. Rich's dream is a world where humans learn to live in balance and harmony with the natural world. Well, yes, I did read that bio, but it was so good that I couldn't help myself because honestly, it encapsulates so much of who you are in a very short amount of time, but also your passion and your desire to harmonize the natural world with us as human beings is just so inspiring. And we thank you for that. And thank you for coming on our podcast because we know you have a very successful one yourself. And you know that ours is kind of based towards mental health. So I'm a big believer. I talk about the 7 doctors, Melissa and Slater, sorry, it's the millionth time that I'm going to mention them, but I talk about the 7 doctors, and the 7 doctors are Dr. Sun, Dr. Air, Dr. Water, Dr. Exercise, Dr. Nutrition, Dr. Rest, and Dr. Earth. They're available 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, and they're free. And, our connection with nature and the natural world and doing that, it really is, it's so important, and people don't realize that this connection, how we live our everyday moments in connection with nature, and the passion that we put behind that is so important. What got you into the environment? Like, was it because you were just out there on the sea doing your paddleboarding? What got you so passionate about the environment?
Thank you for asking. First of all, thank you for having me. Hello, Mariel and Melissa. It's an honor to be with you guys today. I've been super looking forward to this. So yeah, my story actually starts 13 years ago. I was living, before I moved to Laguna Beach, California, I was actually living in Key West, Florida, which I know you have a little tie to in your family lineage, Mariel. And I got wiped out by a hurricane in the end
Wow.
of 2005. I took that as my sign to get the heck out of Florida. And I had a business opportunity in Southern California. And somehow by the grace of goodness, I found this little town of Laguna Beach, California. And 13 years ago, 14 years ago now, I moved into the house that I'm sitting in right now. And I had no idea at that time that the beach that this house sits on is on it's the perfect spot to hop on a paddleboard and just paddle out onto the ocean. At that time, stand-up paddleboarding was pretty much a new sport. I had never done it before. And I would just start paddling out every day. And at first, I just totally fell in love with the landscape of Laguna Beach, seeing it from the ocean. You know, we always see it from, you're on land looking out the ocean. It was that opposite perspective was amazing. And then what happened was every day I would go out and I started seeing dolphins. And the creative in me wanted to capture these moments. So I started bringing a camera. I would take photographs. Then I got a little fancier. I got a GoPro and I put it on my hat and I would start shooting video of these dolphins pretty much every day. And it would just blow my mind. And there's definitely a couple major turning point stories. I'll start with one. One day I was paddling and I looked out as far as you could see on the horizon. And I saw these massive spouts, like big. And I remember thinking, I don't know what that is, but that is a very large animal. And my curiosity got the best of me. So I just started paddling as hard as I could, as far out as I could. And I found myself in the presence of 200-foot long blue whales, the largest animal on the planet. They're over 100 feet long. Imagine 2 school buses. And I'm out there all alone on my little paddleboard, surrounded by these 2 whales. And I was it blew my mind. The fact that I could get on a board, paddle about 40, 45 minutes and be surrounded by the largest animal that's ever been on the planet. That was game changer moment number one. There's another one, which I'll share, but I'll stop there for a moment. It's just kind of dumb luck that I wound up in this house and started paddling. And it's just become, I would say, an obsession. As you said in the intro, I've paddled, I figure, about 30,000 miles, more than the circumference of the planet. And I've done it all right here in Laguna Beach. And it's been, I know the focus of your show here is really on mental health. And we can talk a lot about that. It's a passion of mine, that topic. Like, I can't think of a better way. I love your 7 doctors, and the fact that I get to see all those doctors pretty much every single day.
Yeah.
I can't think of anything better for my own mental health, for sure.
Amazing. Well, so tell me what, I mean, I know, because you've got this organization, One Whale, right? And are you trying to release these whales from captivity?
Yeah, I'll explain. So
explain what that is.
The fact that I basically just do what I do every single day. I get on my board every single day. I've done the same thing for 14 years. And that consistency has led to a lot of great opportunities. It led me to create my own nonprofit. And then a few years ago, I heard about this organization that was specifically helping one whale. There's a whale. He's probably one, or if not the most famous whale in the world, maybe the second most famous, Lolita, also known as Toki at the Miami Seaquarium, has been in that little tank for 53 years, is an extremely well-known whale. But the other whale that this organization was working to protect is a whale named Valdemir. And Valdemir is a white beluga whale who was believed to be in a Russian military program for several years. And then in April of 2019, Valdemir essentially escaped, and he showed up in northern Norway, in the northernmost town in the world, actually, a town called Hammerfest, Norway. And for the last,
my gosh,
for the last 4+ years, he's been living alone in Norway. He showed up, by the way, he's wearing a harness, and the harness had a buckle that read Equipment St. Petersburg. And so it's believed that he was in a Russian military program, and now he's been all alone. He's displaced, he's lost. Beluga whales are like the most social animal in the world, and he's all by himself. And he keeps getting hit by, because he was in captivity, he now relies on human interaction for his socialization. And that's good for humans because they get to hang out with this whale, but it's bad for him because he keeps getting hit by boats and people do some stupid things. They stick things in his mouth. His teeth are all worn down. He's had major injuries. So it's a really, really sad, it's as your expression just showed, it's a very sad story. So I've been a part of this organization that's been working to protect him. And the idea was, well, let's create a reserve in the ocean where he could be protected. And because he first showed up in Hammerfest 4 years ago, like I said, it's the northernmost city in the world. You cannot go any further north and have actual human beings. He stayed there for like 4 months when he first showed up, and they totally fell in love with him. And the city, specifically the politicians, voted to create a whale reserve. But the point is that they didn't want to create a reserve just for him. They said, if we're going to transform an entire fjord, which is huge, we want to bring in other whales also. And that's the real reason I got involved. I absolutely love Valdemir. I've been with him for many weeks over the last year plus. I've gone and visited him, and he's amazing. Like, just him alone is worth it. But the idea that we can create a whale reserve for other whales that are currently in captivity. As I'm talking, there's over 300 beluga whales living in concrete tanks and shopping malls around the world. And I think 56 orcas at places like SeaWorld and marine parks around the world. And the good news is policy, public perception, consciousness around the idea of putting a whale, our most sacred sentient being, in a tank for our own profit and entertainment. Things are shifting around that. So it's one thing for people to say, empty the tanks, this is horrible. It's another thing to have a real solution, because you cannot take one of these whales and just chuck them back in the ocean. They wouldn't survive. They're like your puppy dog that was barking earlier. If you took your dog and said, you're a dog, I'm going to put you in the wilderness where you belong, how long would your dog survive? Like an hour. Maybe. So these whales will need to be cared for. So it's a complicated project, but it's very solution-based. And it's super exciting.
Do you feel that the tide is really changing? Like, people are starting to realize that it's just not cool that we want this for our entertainment.
I do. I remember being a little kid. I grew up in Florida, as I mentioned, and I didn't want to go to Disney World. I wanted to go to SeaWorld. That's where the animals were. That was awesome. And as a little kid, I didn't realize this is not cool what is being done to these animals. I hadn't been to SeaWorld for like probably 40 years until about a month ago. Oh, wow. I had a colleague here in Laguna Beach from Norway, and he's the co-founder of, it's called the Norwegian Whale Reserve, what we're trying to create. And he had never been to a captive whale facility. And when he came here, one day we got on a little boat. My buddy has a little red Zodiac boat, and we went out, and one day we saw, I think it was 7 blue whales, including 2 mom and baby pairs. We saw a humpback whale. We saw 2 fin whales. We saw hundreds of dolphins. So I got him to experience the incredible wildlife off the coast of Southern California.
Can I just interrupt you to say, I have no idea. I mean, I've lived in California off and on between Idaho and California for years, and had no idea that there was this kind of,
that was my point. When I moved here, I didn't either. I had no clue.
Yeah. I mean, did you know, Melissa?
I've not experienced it firsthand, but I've spoken to fishermen who've talked to me about stuff. Yeah.
There is more marine mammals off the coast of Orange County, specifically Southern California, than pretty much anywhere, if not anywhere in the world. So I took him first to go see this incredible wildlife.
Yeah.
And then the next day we drove to San Diego and we went to SeaWorld, and we were going to stay until they closed, and we didn't even last that long. We saw the orca show. We saw the bottlenose dolphins in captivity. They had 3 beluga whales, just like Valdemir, in this awful, disgusting little tank with a huge roller coaster in the background with people screaming.
Trauma.
It was so bad. It was so bad. And the good thing is, it was less than half full. This was on a Friday in the middle of the summer, and you think it would have been packed, and it was maybe a third full. Like the orca show, it was mostly empty, thank God. So I think, to your point, people are starting to realize this is just not right.
Not cool.
Not cool.
We're a strange species. There was a time when we would gather fellow men and women who had physical challenges and put them on display in circuses. So we're kind of a strange species in how we like to stare at other things.
Good
I
point.
have a question for you. At the Strait of Gibraltar and the southwestern tip of Europe, there's been stories of one traumatized orca who hit into the rudder of the ship because either she had been hit by the ship or her baby is what I think I read. And then a lot of the other young orca whales started doing the same things, and so these ships started sinking. In addition to that, there's been numerous stories. I think the most recent one I can remember is May of this year in Western Australia, almost 100 in the pod
Yes.
of whales, on shore in a euthanized fashion because I think one of the female whales had something had happened to her uterus when giving birth, and so all the whales in unison came up and self-euthanized. So I think maybe my question is, or maybe a point I would hope you can highlight on, is what we don't know so much of what's happening. And we, just like I'll find the parallel here in a moment, I promise. Just as in Maui, there's all these insufferable fires. I was reading this morning that there's people still, because Southwest Airlines and American Airlines and United now have now lowered, and Hawaiian Airlines, excuse me, have now lowered their prices drastically so that people can get out and be with family on the mainland or elsewhere if they need. People are still taking advantage of these lower flights and flying in to Wailea and going to the hotels and taking photos of themselves, while there are people, we've got the highest recorded number of deaths in a fire in the US in over 100 years. So we've got all this tragedy around us. So the parallel I'm trying to find is we don't know, we profess to know so much about what's happening in our oceans. And this is the sea, this by its own regulation and what it provides us, it gives us the air we breathe, it's our rainwater, it's just so plentiful and giving to us.
Yes.
What are some giveaways that we need about the ocean and the life inside there? Because I think that I won't get started on the cruise ships, but that'll be on another show.
Don't get me started on the cruise ships.
I bet. So what is it that, aside from not throwing our trash in the ocean, what is something that we need to know?
I was going to say two things came to mind, about 100 things came to mind, but I'll share two. I had an encounter. So I told you about the blue whales at the beginning. And then a few months after that, I had a life-changing encounter with a pod of 4 orcas, 2 miles off the coast here of Laguna Beach. And that story, that was the game changer for me personally. That's when the exposure, I shot a video of these 4 orcas and they were coming under my board, and I wasn't even going to share the video online. It was such as like a sacred moment. And then I showed it to a couple of friends and they were like, dude, this is way too cool. You got to put it out there. And that story just went global, like viral beyond viral, like you couldn't buy that kind of press. And that was, for me, the turning point moment where this passion that I had for many years I knew that it needed to become my life's work. Like I needed to spend the rest of my life doing whatever I could to protect these animals that have given me so much. But the story I want to share happened a week later. A week later, after paddling with these 4 orcas, I paddle out to the exact same spot because the orcas were kind of circling around this big area, and I thought maybe they would come back. I paddle out and there was no orcas, but I saw something that blew my mind. There was a mother and a brand new baby gray whale. They were migrating. So the gray whales migrate. They have the longest migration in the world of a land animal, or not besides a bird. They start up in Alaska and they go down to the lagoons in Mexico, about 5,000-6,000 miles. And typically they have their babies in these lagoons. They stay there for a few months and then they go all the way back to Alaska. But every now and then they'll have the babies on the way. So I was out there with a friend of mine, 2 miles offshore, and we see this 45-foot gray whale mother and a baby that was about the size of my board, about 14 feet. And the baby, I'm convinced now this baby was literally a few hours old. Now, what you need to understand is that these whales for many, many years would go to Mexico, show up in these lagoons, only to be mass slaughtered by humans. And if you knew why we kill whales, it is the silliest thing ever, like what we actually use them for. It's just ridiculous. My point is this: for 3 hours that day, this mother whale would bring her baby right over to me. For 3 hours, they circled around me. They would literally bump into my board. It was as if the mother was saying, look at my baby. Look at my child. You would think the mom would say, that's a human. They kill us. Let's get the hell away.
Right.
It was the opposite. It is said that whales represent forgiveness. Instead of being, we're going to attack you, like some people think these orcas are attacking boats. It was, look at my baby. Look her in the eye. Love her. So to me, that was, by the way, the most profound of 2,000 encounters I've had on the water. That was the most memorable, profound thing. And I've got, if you look at my book, the cover photo of on the cover is a photo of the mom and that baby.
Wow.
It's so,
I mean, that would make you change your religion.
I brought tears to my eyes. I'm literally crying over here. Anyway, keep going.
The other story I want to tell.
Keep going.
I've got lots of ocean tales, but this happened recently, and this I think really relates to your show and mental health. So about 2 months ago, I was on the phone with a friend of mine, a colleague named Wallace J. Nichols, who you absolutely want to have on your show if you haven't already. Everybody calls him Jay. Jay wrote a book called Blue Mind, and it talks about the healing power of water. And we were talking about this whale project and what we're doing. And he said to me, Rich, he goes, you're not saving whales. I'm like, what are you talking about, Jay? Of course we are. We're building a whale reserve. We're going to try to get whales that are in concrete tanks and, get them back in the ocean where they belong. He says, nah. He goes, you might save some whales. He goes, but what you're really doing is you're saving humans.
Yeah.
Because, and then he went into, and this is better to interview him perhaps than me, he's an author and a scientist who fully understands the healing power of water.
Yeah.
And he was explaining by saving these whales, basically what he said is if there's anything the world needs right now, it's more love, it's more compassion. And these animals, if we can't show compassion for our most sacred spiritual beings, basically we're pretty much screwed as a species. So, there's so much fear out there, and I can't buy into the fear side of things. I try to just come from a place of just showing people what I'm blessed to see every day and loving these animals, hoping, it's like Jacques Cousteau said forever ago now, we protect what we love. So let's get people to fall in love with these animals. Let's get people, as you said at the very beginning of the show, Mariel, to reconnect with nature. We've completely lost touch with ourselves. There's such a disconnect with us and our nature. And I think if people can really reconnect to nature, reconnect to ourselves, jump in the ocean, take your shoes off for God's sake, and put your feet in the sand, in the dirt, get your hands in the dirt. I think to me, that's the real answer. It's not about saving whales. It's not a technology that's going to save humanity. It's not the planet that needs to be saved. It's not the ocean that needs to be saved. If anything needs to be saved,
it's humans.
It's us. It's us.
You're so right. That is absolutely 100% what we believe. I know you have another question, Melissa. I'm just sitting in awe. So.
Oh no, listen, the most important thing that I was wanting to talk about was the fact that, global warming and pollution and commercial fishing and the ship strikes and whatever's going on around the world, whether it's in the warm waters off Ukraine, whatever's happening, wherever it is, we're doing all this. We're manufacturing a lot of this. And at some point, they say that what you see depends on where you stand. Obviously you got a good view, Rich, but so with that perspective, those that are surrounded by the concrete jungle can't relate to what we're saying. And so my hope is always that we can bring this message to those who may never get near the ocean. There's some people who never can put their feet in the sea or the ocean. So, but they could a river, and they could something, some creek, something. So my hope is that people, that our audience listening to your tales will, even though they can't They can't reach that point. They can't paddle. Maybe they can't even paddleboard. Whatever they can do is to remember that saving our land and saving our water is saving us.
That's right.
And
Yeah,
and
that's
we do matter. We matter when we've got AI. It's not breathing down our neck. It's already inhabiting our spaces. When we've got this coming at us, AI is not going to have some compassion for a baby whale that's being brought to the paddle border. So it's trying to understand what. So it's not so much a question; it's more of a plea to our audience to really hear your tale. Go to your Instagram for the love of each other and really connect and make it matter. Make it matter.
Make it matter. Yeah, I absolutely agree. And whales are so extraordinary in so many ways. I mean, the whale calls. I've been a big meditator for many years, and I went through a period where I would just listen to the sound of whales in the ocean, like their call to one another. And, it's been hearkened to like alien conversation, whatever.
Oh,
There's
yeah.
a lot of craziness out there, but the truth is there's something completely captivating, and it kind of throws you into a place that's not, it's not base, it's otherworldly, it's very spiritual. So I think when you say it's these spiritual beings, these sentient beings, this mother that's holding her baby out to you, and I mean, it makes me cry to just even reiterate what you said. Just like that must have been so cool.
Coolest thing ever. I love that you brought up meditation, if I may.
Yeah.
There was a time in my life 15 years ago where I thought that I was supposed to be a meditation teacher. And there was something about putting myself out. I've been a coach and an author and a speaker and all this stuff for 25 years or so now. But there was something that just felt way too egoic to put myself out there as a spiritual teacher.
I hear you.
But I always had this knowing that the answer to the problems that we face was that the world needs an elevation in consciousness. Yes. And the best thing that any one of us can do, and you do it through meditation, I did it, a lot of it through meditation, and now my meditation is kind of more of a moving meditation out on the water, on the ocean,
100%.
with your 7 doctors and dolphin, I'll call them 9 doctors. I'll add 8 dolphins and 9 whales. That's my meditation. Like and so the point being that it's an elevation in consciousness that is what is needed. So 2 things on that. One, it's kind of come back full circle, because I think now what we need is, as we're talking about this reconnection to nature, when people not only reconnect with nature and they reconnect with themselves and have that elevation in consciousness, as a human's consciousness evolves, what happens? They start making better decisions for themselves, the 100%. Food that they eat, the thoughts that they think, the feelings that they feel, the people they surround themselves with. They're better for themselves, they're better for their family, their community, and there's a massive ripple effect. And I would be remiss if I didn't bring this up, because you mentioned the song of a whale. So in 2015, I went to a place called the Silver Bank. It's off of the coast of the Dominican Republic. And it is a breeding ground for humpback whales. It's one of the best places in the world where you can actually swim with humpbacks. And I had an encounter with a male singing humpback whale where I laid on the top of the water, and underneath me for about 2 hours, this humpback whale was singing. And I recorded the song. And back to our team that was helping to save these whales, there's a man named Roger Payne. Roger Payne was the first man to ever record the sound of a humpback whale. His recordings, it's the #1 selling nature album of all time. And when he showed the world the song, the people heard the song of the humpback whale, that led to the birth of the Save the Whales movement and the end of whaling and things like that. And it's important for me to share the story right now because Roger just passed away about a month ago. And his legacy will live on. He's a true legend, and it was an honor for me to be associated with him in some small way.
Oh my gosh. Well, it's an honor to talk to you and to be able to hear about your experience in the ocean and how you've utilized it. I love that you've utilized nature to, and your moving meditation, because, one thing that I want everybody, all our listeners to know, because sometimes you say meditation, people get all freaked out, like, oh, I don't do that, or I can't do that, or, whatever. There are many ways to meditate. There's many ways. It's like, there's many ways to find your spirit, your higher power, and sometimes it's through movement, sometimes, but it's so important to find something. And thank you so much for sharing your story. It's just incredible. And everybody who's listening, please go to onewhale.org. Is that correct?
Yeah, onewhale.org. Like I mentioned, my Instagram is probably the best place that has all my photos and videos.
Good. And say your Instagram again, because I really want people to connect with it.
Yeah,
say it again.
It's Rich German, RichGerman, LB, like Laguna Beach.
Oh, got it. Okay, now I know what LB means. Okay. Thank you so much, Rich. You're such an inspiration. I know that the whales and the dolphins are singing right now because you're doing so much for them. So thank you.
It's an honor. Like I said, thank you guys for having me. I can talk about this stuff all day, and I hope your audience.
Oh, you'll come back and talk about it again.
I'll come back tomorrow anytime. It's always a pleasure.
Okay, cool.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks for sticking around. Out comes the sun. This is Melissa Yamaguchi. Don't call me Christy. I have an energy tip for you. Feng Shui kitchen. So there's 9 little tips that we use to make sure that your kitchen is optimized in Feng Shui. And one of the very first one is a trick to put all of your perishables on your door. Now, I've had some people who work in the kitchen. They're saying, Melissa, that doesn't make any sense. You've got to keep the perishables in so they stay colder. The truth of the matter is, your brand new perishables you can put in the drawer, the crisper, but as they're starting to age a little bit, keep them in the door so that you see them. They keep your herbs in a jar, a glass jar, and then tent it with a little bag, but keep them in the door so you can keep track of what you've got, little jars of your carrots and so forth. When you have this in the front, then you have access to it. It keeps your refrigerator fresher and cleaner. Another thing is to put the older items in front, put the newer in the back. So the fresh in and the older ones out in the front, older items in the front. That's a little feng shui thing. Do not leave your refrigerator empty. The refrigerator is symbolic of the nourishment that you provide your family and what you have in store for them so that they can be sustained. So an empty refrigerator is not only sad looking, it looks like you're a 19-year-old college student, but it also energetically shows lack. So keep some food in the fresher and more lively, the better, the more full of color, the better. Keep it clean, really, to promote well-being. That's kind of a no-brainer here. That's, I think, every modality uses that. But in Feng Shui, that is an absolute must. The refrigerator must be cleaned on a regular cycle to promote fresh well-being. Another tip is to avoid your refrigerator facing your door. Now, energetically, when the refrigerator is too near a door and it's facing it, then it can interfere. That's just logic. People are standing at the refrigerator. And if you're my husband, even after a full meal with a salad built for an army of 40, he still stands in front of the refrigerator. I don't know what he's finding. Maybe he's looking what's in the old and what's in the new, but he stands in front of the refrigerator. So if he's populating that area and you've got a door around there, it's not conducive to good feng shui. Another thing is to keep the refrigerator removed from the stove area. I've been into homes before where they'll have ovens and then the refrigerator's right next to it. When you've got that mix of constant hot and cold, it doesn't make a lot of sense. If you have control over the layout of your kitchen, keep the refrigerator away, more near the pantry, if you would, than the hot stove and oven, or microwave if you have those in your kitchen. No other electrical appliances on the refrigerator because of it emits magnetic electricity and it's not good. It's just too doubled up. So nothing electrical on top of a refrigerator. Ideally, you'll have nothing on top of your refrigerator. Sometimes people will place vases of something, or they'll have storage, use it as storage. It's not super bad, but ideally it would be free. It makes your refrigerator much more efficient if it's free up on top. And then keep your refrigerator in the kitchen or the garage. I have been to homes where there's a refrigerator in the dining room or the front entryway. I don't think it's a new design. I don't know what's going on, but I have seen it a handful of times. Where now, if you're going into a college kid's room and they've got a refrigerator in their room, that kind of deletes this whole message because they're college kids and it's empty anyway, probably. But keep the refrigerator, if you can, in the kitchen or in the garage or in an extra pantry that you have. And those are the only places it should be. Keep it stocked, keep it fresh, keep the colorful colors of the rainbow in there as much as you can for your health and for when it's more appealing to the eye, it's more satisfying to the gut. That's my tip for the day. Stick around. Mariel Hemingway is coming up next. Tips on health and balance.
Thank you so much, Melissa. Yes, I'm going to give you some healthy tips today. I want to talk about the chemicals that we find in our foods, the chemicals and the pesticides that we find in our foods. And I'm just going to give you a few of them to really be aware of why they're not good for you. Okay. So, first of all, I'm going to say when I go to the grocery store, I don't shop in the middle of the grocery store. I don't shop in the middle aisles because for the most part, the middle aisles contain all the food that is unpronounceable with ingredients that really aren't designed for your ingestion. And the reason why they're in your foods is actually political. It has to do with people lobbying to get certain chemicals because they're going to make money off them. I don't know. I'm not a political person, unlike my co-host, who actually is very knowledgeable about these things. But I just know that the reason we have all these chemicals and pesticides and things in our food is because of something that is beyond my control. But what I can control is how I shop in the market, and what foods I buy. So I tend to stay on the outside of the market, meaning the fresh fruits and vegetables, the organic dairy products when possible, outside, the food that I can pronounce that is real food, vegetables and fruit and real meat or pasture raised eggs and et cetera, et cetera. But I'm going to mention a few of these chemicals that I just want you to be aware of that are in like nitrates, for instance. You see these in a lot of deli meats, sausages, things like that. And it's a preservative, and they can be linked to stomach cancer and throat cancer and possibly brain and thyroid cancers. Just be aware that the food that you put into your mouth is very similar to any drug that you put in to get rid of pain. Your food is your medicine. It really is. So, and potassium bromate. Potassium bromate is a possible human carcinogen added to flour and used in a lot of packaged goods. So a lot of those crackers and, things, sometimes bread, will have potassium bromate in it. Propylparaben, it's in a lot of skincare. So that's why I try to get skincare and hair care that doesn't have parabens in it. It can cause developmental and reproductive harm. So those of you, especially the women out there trying to get pregnant and your husbands are just as much a part of that as you are, stay away from parabens. BHA is a preservative used in cured meats and other foods. Multiple sources has identified this as a carcinogen. You just don't want to use it. BHT, I'm not going to say that one either. BHT is a preservative found in cereals and other foods. It's in so many cereals, all those cereals that I grew up eating, the Lucky Charms and the Captain Crunch. You just stay away. It's a carcinogen. TBHQ is a preservative in Pop-Tarts. I'm so sorry, people, if you love Pop-Tarts and a lot of other processed foods, some of those snowballs. It's not healthy for you. It weakens the immune system. There's all kinds of reasons you just want to stay away from these things. Titanium dioxide. Mostly you see titanium dioxide in sunscreen. on the face. It's effective as a sunscreen, but it is not good for you, and it can damage your DNA, funnily enough. Or not funnily enough, it's not funny. It actually can. BVO is brominated vegetable oil, or BVO is used to stabilize citrus flavors in sodas and fruity kinds of drinks, and it can cause neurological harm. I'm very, very sorry if you're into that. PFAs are toxic chemicals known as PFAs, are used in food packaging and are known to leach into the food itself. So that's when you see like a plastic container that says, no PFAs, that's what that means, because when PFAs are in those plastic containers, it can leach into the foods, and it's super, super unhealthy, bad for reproductive systems, among many other harms. There's a lot to this list of chemicals, but those are kind of the top 6 that I think you really need to avoid them in a big, big way. So that's my tip for the day. Please stay healthy, stay aware, stay conscious of what's in your food and around your food, and also be aware of your detergents and things like that. But I can get into that on another show. Anyway,
it all ends up out into our oceans and our seas, which affects
absolutely
our lovely whales and orcas.
Yes. And 100%. I mean, it's no joke. These things are real, and we sort of like, let's just put it on the back burner. And it is about convenience. And I sound like she's like a woo-woo environmental. No, they're known to cause damage. And if
it's all marketing, right? It's all marketing. It's marketing to people for convenience. It's marketing to people on the cheap. It's marketing to people and taking advantage of their current position. If someone doesn't have a lot of money or isn't exposed to a lot of this, they don't know any better. Hopefully we're able to reach people far and wide and let them know, demand choices, demand change, demand options. It is a political thing. And when we stand up and we talk to people that are making these decisions, it doesn't have to be on a federal level. It can be on a local level. When we go and talk to our local leaders and we just say, we demand change. I'm a mom of young kids, and I don't want my son being fed blankety blank at the school lunch menu. This is not healthy for him. And so we start demanding and the squeaky wheel gets greased.
You make change by your wallet, by how you shop,
how you vote, but also the squeaky wheel gets greased. So if people raise enough stink and say, I don't want this anymore, you're killing our children, you're harming our elders, you're hurting us, we're your constituents, people will stand up and listen.
Absolutely. And please, people, understand that I'm not just, touting something, it's, there are minimal amounts, it's been FDA approved. That doesn't really mean anything, because remember that there are other countries that have banned some of these things, banned them because they are considered poison in like Scandinavian countries. And, just think about that. If they're banned in another country and we're allowing it, that says something. It says to me, I don't want anything to do with it.
Did you start to say Germany and then you stopped because you thought it was Germany?
I might have. I actually might have. Germany. Okay, got it. Or rich German. What a great guest. Anyway, what a great show. We are so honored every time that you tune into our show, because we're so happy to be able to share with you some of the amazing stories we come across. Melissa and I are passionate about sharing with you things that will expand your brain and also help you to understand a little bit more about your mental health. Remember that this also benefits Mariel Hemingway Foundation.org, which is a resource navigator, or will be soon enough. And we're just grateful to you all. And thank you to Dash Radio. We are loving that we are on your station now. It's so exciting for us. We thank all the people that have joined us there. And thank you to Slater, our producer. He is wonderful, and he shows up every single time that we screw up the calendar and say, oh yes, I think we're going to do this right now. Anyway.
You can find us Saturdays and Sundays on Mindstream.
Yes.
Dash, Saturdays 9 a.m., Sundays 9 p.m. Tune in. It's fun. Dash has a lot of really great channels and fun things to listen to anyway. Find us on there and come join the party. Come join the podcast.
Yeah, and then and soon we'll make even a more of an announcement with Gap. But that's
I'm just spilling tea right and left.
Yeah, I'm just like spilling the beans. All right. Anyway, come back. Don't leave us ever. Okay. And tell your friends. We love you all. Thank you. Out Comes the Sun podcast radio show.